The scream that ripped through the early morning air that Tuesday still haunts me no matter how many nights go by. I swear I'll never unhear it. I was halfway through my coffee, groggy and barely awake, when this unholy roar shot up from my front yard like someone was being murdered out there. I ran to the window, and what do I see? Linda Carver. Yes, that Linda, our Pinewood Grove HOA president, standing on my roof hair, flying crowbar gripped in both hands, looking for all the world like some deranged superhero gone off the rails. She was wailing on my satellite dish, muttering ugly junk not in my neighborhood with every swing, and before I could even process it, she tore the thing clean off and hurled it into a trash bin she'd dragged over. The crash echoed so loud I swear the birds stopped singing. She strutted off like she'd just conquered Everest, dusting off her hands, head held high. If she'd known what was coming, she wouldn't have looked half so smug. Not 5 minutes later, her phone rang at her front door, and I watched her face fall. Whoever was on the other end had news that rattled her to the core. That right there was the moment the Linda empire began to unravel, and I gotta say I felt a little rush of satisfaction. Let me back up a sec so you get the full picture. Name's Lucas Navarro, 38, aerospace engineer, kind of a science geek, honestly. I moved to Pinewood Grove about 6 months ago because, well, it was quiet, affordable, and frankly, I just needed some peace to do my job. My work's not exactly your run-of-the-mill 9 to 5. I'm responsible for atmospheric research, the kind of stuff NASA relies on to keep satellites safe track. Solar storms predict the wild things our sun throws at us. The satellite dish Linda smashed to pieces wasn't for cable TV or spying on the neighbors. It was a high-tech sensor, a tiny part of a huge national network. Basically a set of eyes on the sky that feeds real-time data to NASA's servers, so if something goes haywire in the upper atmosphere, we know before it wipes out power grids or communications. I followed every rule, city permits, HOA guidelines, you name it. The thing was small, discreet, tucked on the back corner of my roof, barely visible unless you climbed a tree or flew a drone. But none of that mattered to Linda, because from the moment the dish went up, she went on the warpath. I still remember her showing up at my door, clipboard khaki pants HOA badge hanging off her shirt like a sheriff's star, barking, "That eyesore's gotta go." I tried to show her all my permits, my NASA letter, everything, but she just waved it off. "I don't care about government stamps," she snapped. "This is my neighborhood. You don't install spy gear without my say." I thought she was joking. She wasn't. Linda's paranoia was the stuff of legend. She whipped up stories about government surveillance, convinced herself I was reporting on her gardening habits or something, and just would not let up. It went from snide remarks to a full-blown campaign official-looking HOA letters, first requesting I remove the dish, then threatening fines, then citing vague violations that weren't even in the bylaws. She got the board involved too. Those folks are so scared of crossing her, you'd think she had dirt on every one of them. Pretty soon, I had people snapping photos of my house every morning like I was a zoo exhibit. At one point, a couple of her helpers even tried to peer into my windows, and when I called them out for harassment, Linda just smirked and said, "Public property. Documenting violations. You know what I mean? That kind of petty tyranny that makes your blood boil." I offered to put up a little screen so the dish was completely hidden. She just scoffed, "Spy equipment. I know what you're up to." There was just no reasoning with her. It was like every bit of logic I tossed her way just bounced off some invisible shield. I realized then I was in for a fight, and trust me, it wasn't going to be pretty. The breaking point. That came on a Thursday right after she'd figured out my work schedule. I was at the lab totally oblivious, and Linda, armed with her crowbar and a ladder, scaled my house in broad daylight right in front of everyone. My neighbor, old Mr. Thompson, saw the whole thing from his kitchen window. Linda circling the place like a vulture, then hauling herself up and going at the dish like a woman possessed. That thing was built to survive hurricanes, but Linda was out for blood, and she finally pried it loose, tossed it in her bin, and stood there triumphant, hands on hips, like she'd just saved the neighborhood from an alien invasion. When I got home, my driveway was blocked by her trash bin, and my $10,000 piece of equipment was mangled sitting on top of old takeout and lawn clippings. I just stood there staring until my phone started buzzing like crazy calls, texts, emails, all from NASA security project leads. You name it. Turns out the second Linda yanked that dish, the network registered a signal loss. Alarms went off, protocols kicked in, and my project lead was demanding answers. But it was the email from NASA security that made my blood run cold. Security breach, atmospheric network compromised. Immediate response required. I got on the phone with Emily Wong, NASA's emergency security officer. She listened as I explained what happened. Linda's crowbar, rampage, the ruined equipment, the whole bit. She went real quiet, then said, "Mr. Navarro, this isn't a neighborhood dispute anymore. This is federal property. You're describing sabotage of government research." She explained it could be a federal crime since taxpayer money paid for that equipment, and its destruction could have national consequences. I don't think Linda had a clue what she'd stepped in. Next morning, 2 black SUVs rolled into Pinewood Grove, not a common sight in this sleepy suburb. Federal agents piled out, Wong leading the charge, a technician right behind her documenting every inch of the wreckage while another agent canvassed neighbors. Folks came out in their robes, clutching coffee mugs, gossip in the air. Linda Ever, the showwoman, marched right up. "I'm the HOA president." "What's all this about?" Wong barely looked at her. "We're investigating the destruction of federal research equipment, ma'am." Linda went pale, and for once she didn't have much to say. The technician confirmed it was intentional vandalism, no doubt about it. Mr. Thompson backed up my story, and then came the real twist. Mrs. Lee, 2 doors down, had a Ring camera pointed right at my roof. She handed over the footage high def with audio. There was Linda crowbar in hand, ranting about spy gear and junk as she destroyed my dish. You could practically see the agent's jaws clench as they watched it. Wong took that video right up to Linda's front door. "Mrs. Carver, the video shows you destroying federal research equipment. That's a federal offense." Linda tried to pull the HOA president card again, claiming she was just enforcing neighborhood standards, but Wong wasn't having it. "Your title doesn't put you above the law. You disrupted a NASA project, cost the government a fortune, and endangered critical research." She laid it out, plain fines, jail time, civil liability, the whole 9 yards. Word spread fast. Linda's supporters vanished. Even the board members stopped taking her calls. 3 days later, NASA served Pinewood Grove with a cease and desist, plus a civil suit for damages numbers so big I couldn't even wrap my head around them. But the real cherry on top, Linda herself was ordered to oversee the installation of my replacement equipment under federal supervision with every neighbor watching. The new dish was bigger, badder, covered in tamper-proof sensors and blinking lights impossible to miss. Linda stood by, face red, as the technicians worked her reign in ruins. Not long after Linda resigned for health reasons, but everyone knew she'd been run out. The new board dug through her files and found years' worth of questionable fines. Thousands billed to neighbors for imaginary violations, harassment over garden gnomes, bogus complaints to the city, even accusations of mail tampering, which, is a federal felony, too. Agent Wong's investigation expanded, and it turned out Linda had been logging everyone's comings and goings, stalking folks she didn't like, all under the guise of protecting the community. If you'd ever wondered how deep her control ran, well, now you know. Dr. Kim, the lead scientist on my project, stopped by and laid it out for me. That little window of missing data right when Linda destroyed the dish left a permanent hole in our solar storm research, and those storms can wipe out satellites, disrupt power grids, even put astronauts' lives at risk. Because of Linda's stunt, the whole network had to be upgraded with new security all over the country. They even called it the Pinewood incident. So in a weird way, her paranoia pushed us forward, though the cost was massive. As for Linda, the lawsuits kept piling up. Her husband had to mortgage their house to pay the lawyers, her kids moved out to escape the scandal, and their home sat unsellable, a monument to her downfall. At night, the new security lights from my monster dish bathed her yard in a glow that probably kept her up a constant reminder of everything she'd lost. But Pinewood Grove Place changed almost overnight. Gardens got a little wilder. People put up what they wanted in their yards, laughter returned to the block. Mr. Thompson ran for HOA president and actually listened to folks. NASA sent out pamphlets to the whole neighborhood. Research equipment is vital. If you see something, call us, don't destroy it. Local news did stories on HOA abuse, and Linda's name became a warning to every neighborhood in the state. Funny enough, the hole in our data turned into an unexpected blessing for science. It proved how crucial these sensors are and made it easier to get funding for more, Dr. Kim called it, Linda's unintentional contribution to progress, which honestly cracks me up. So was Linda a tyrant or just completely unhinged? Should I have stood up sooner, or was the whole neighborhood complicit for letting her run wild so long? Some days I wonder. What I do know is that my new dish humming away up there, keeping watch on the skies, stands as proof that science and stubbornness can outlast ignorance. Linda's prison is her own shame, and my win is the freedom Pinewood finally got. Every night as the sun sets and that golden light hits my roof, I remember justice has a funny way of catching up even in the quietest places. So, where do you land? Was Linda just a monster, or did the system let her happen? Ever seen an HOA go too far, or maybe you think they're a necessary evil? Drop your take below. I gotta hear how your neighborhood compares. Let's talk about what's right, what's fair. And if you've ever tangled with someone like Linda, well, you know what I mean.